Hi, my name is Allie Schmidt. This is my dad, Dan. He owns Catron's Glass.
Thanks, Allie. Things like doors and windows go into making a house. But when it's your home, you expect more, like the great service and selection you'll get from Catron's Glass. Vinyl replacement windows from Catron's come with a lifetime warranty, including accidental glass breakage replacement. Also ask for custom shower doors and many other products and services. Call 962-1636. Locally owned with local employees for nearly 30 years.
Catron's Glass, the clear choice.
Welcome to the BeTempered podcast, where we explore the art of finding balance in a chaotic world.
Join us as we delve into insightful conversations, practical tips, and inspiring stories to help you navigate life's ups and downs with grace and resilience.
We're your hosts, Dan Schmidt and
Ben Spar.
Let's embark on a journey to live our best lives.
This is BeTempered.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the BeTempered podcast, episode number
21.
Keep this thing rolling. We got a little weather change here in Ohio. Looks like we might start getting to the fall. We just came out of the furnace.
Yeah, literally yesterday.
Oh, man, this weekend was rough. We had a son JV football game and then daughter's soccer game. It was hot.
Yep.
I mean, that sun was hot. So I was hot sitting in the stands, sweating, watching them. So I can't imagine how they felt, but so here we are back in the studio today, and we have a special man with us, someone who I was fortunate enough to call a teammate many years ago, Marcus Colvin. And Marcus comes from Chaminade Julienne, all the way from Dayton, Ohio.
Yeah.
Marcus, welcome to the BeTempered podcast.
Guys. Happy to be here. I've been looking forward to this for like the last month of my life. So, in fact, my wife called me on the way in. She's flying to Atlanta. She says, "Are you ready for the podcast?" I mean, it's a big deal. So, yeah, this thing's going to blow up, But no, I'm excited to be here, Dan. Support you. Love what you're doing. My heart is, mission aligned to like overcoming and positivity in this world. And I love the stories that people share and what people live through and what they're able to talk about. So I'm hoping to be able to participate in that part of what you're doing here with BeTempered. So I appreciate being here, guys.
Well, and like we've talked here a couple times in the past couple weeks or a month, and talked again last night. Coach Kelly, who was a super impactful man and mentor in both of our lives, when he came on the podcast, he actually came to my office, an hour before the podcast, because he's to be early is to be on time, and to be on time is to be late.
Right,
so he showed up and we started talking, and he said, "Marcus Colvin, you need to get Marcus on the podcast. Great. He's got a story that needs to be shared." And so here we are. And so we're grateful for you making the trip over here. And so we want to start off like we do with everybody, Marcus. We want to hear your story. So talk about your childhood growing up.
Yeah. Well, if you ever seen the movie Slumdog Millionaire, I reflect on, if you've never seen that movie, this may not make sense, and I'm going to ruin the plot for you. But this guy wins $1 million on a game show answering questions that he got answers to through experiences in his life. So, the last part of the movie, one of the phrases is, "It was written," and so it was almost like this guy was supposed to win this game because God put these things in his life that he had to overcome and, find answers to. And, when I think about being a 43-year-old husband, father, assistant director of development, football coach, whatever I've done, I've been super happy with the life I've been able to live, but also being reflective on, those challenges that helped get me to this point. So, I was born in Columbus, Ohio. I have geez, how many siblings do I have? So many. I have we're kind of like the Brady Bunch family, where my mom and dad were married and they separated, and my mom remarried, and, my dad had other kids. And, I guess I'll just kind of, claim my brothers and sisters that my mom birthed, but I'm one of six. And I'm the second oldest. I have an older brother, Chuck, who, we fought a lot. You guys had brothers. Like, I remember he used to punch me in the face when we were young, and I was like, I understood as a young kid, like, I know we're in a disagreement, but you can't hit me in the face. Yeah. Like, tackle me, but that's my dude, man. So, but anyway, 4 younger sisters, super blessed, love them to death, sadly, my youngest sister, Rosa, she passed when she was 22, just of a pneumonia that got worse, and it just didn't go well. So, that was pretty tragic for all of us. But born in Columbus, Ohio, and, if I go back, if I could remember it all, I would imagine that life was pretty nice. Mom, dad, they dated in high school, had us way early, had Chuck when mom was 17. She had me when she was 19. I would tell my mom, like, I know I wasn't planned. She's like, all of you were planned. I'm like, I couldn't imagine being 17 and 19, but, but so the story goes. And then, my sisters come along. Unfortunately for us, their relationship didn't work out. And, dad kind of disappeared, and, mom's a single mom. And as a kid, I love my kids. I know they love me, but there's something about that mom, something about having mom. And so, but anyway, raised by a single mom, who, as I reflect on it, just worked her tail off, had a job, and, met my now stepdad, who's a good dude, but in the initial days, didn't bring a lot of positivity to our situation, unfortunately. And so, you talk about, drugs getting involved and that happening in the house that you're living in as a kid. And I remember a lot of that. And unfortunately, a big stain, or I would say ingrained memory of mine, is it's a Friday night. If you remember, like Steve Urkel, that's not even a show, TGIF, right? So House, or was that Family Matters, and like Boy Meets World, or all those shows on Friday night. And I can recall we're home, and just me and the kids. Mom and Willie are out somewhere, and SWAT team breaks in our house. Boom, right? And I'm 10 years old, watching Family Matters with my sister and sisters and my brother. And we're like, it's just us kids, right? There's guns coming in the house. And so pretty dang on tragic, for a kid to experience. And, I share that just because things changed dramatically for us after that moment. I hate sharing the business because I don't want people to reflect on, well, your mom and, your now stepdad, are bad. They're not bad people. They were in a situation and have since found themselves out. We have such a great relationship today, which I hope to share later. But in that moment, it just wasn't going well. As a kid, you're just, I just knew we were eating. I was sleeping in the house, and kaboom, this happens. And, probably long story short is we no longer live with Mom and Willie. And so, the kids kind of get divided and conquered amongst the family. And I'm living with Grandma and Grandpa. Chuck's living with Aunt Holly. And so that kind of became a norm for us. And, I will always be thankful for family in terms of just being thankful that it's bigger than you. I've got great aunts and uncles and grandparents that stood up for us. And I know we weren't necessarily together, but we were safe. We were cared for. And, I ended up moving to Pataskala, Ohio, with my Aunt Kirby and Uncle Eugene. Man, they're such a blessing in my life. And kind of reestablished life, and
How old were you when that?
I was going in 6th grade.
Okay.
Yeah. So what are you, 11, 12?
Yeah.
11. Yeah. Played football, as a little league, but then when that situation happened, didn't play football again until like 7th grade, which I'm kind of sad about. Like I think about that, like I love to play the game, and I missed like 2 years, but yeah, went out and moved to Pataskala, Ohio. It started attending Licking Heights High School, which was interesting. I grew up in the west side of Columbus, brown-skinned dude, with people that look like me. And I go to Licking Heights, really small rural community, and I'm one of two. Yeah. And, I recall going to school the first day and, just seeing a lot of normalcy, like mom and dad.
Yeah.
Mom and dad, nice cars, clean school. It was weird for me.
Yeah, because you hadn't seen it.
Had not experienced that. And so, in fact, I remember one of my good friends today, Nate Wilkinson. I remember being in class, and he's like 2 rows behind me, like this homeroom class. And I'm the new dude. I'm the new guy, again, the new brown-skinned dude. And I heard him say to his buddy, like, I bet he's good at basketball. I was. Yeah. I later learned that he was the guy, like, Nate was the athlete. And I was like, I'm going to bust his butt when we get in these sports, So, but anyway, so moved to Licking Heights, fall in love with the community, really embraced and, sports obviously became kind of the catalyst of my motivation. Played basketball, played football, played baseball, ended up running track. I wish I could have done it all. They didn't let. I was going to do track and baseball in high school, but they didn't let me.
Yeah.
You know, they said it wasn't fair because our defensive coordinator was the head baseball coach, and he was like, just come to the games for baseball. You know, I played center field, and, you know, didn't work on running track. But very thankful, like, again, as I talk about, things happen in that moment that, you know, that occurred when we were young that separated us. And, you know, I can even recall prior to that, like when I reflect today, when my spoiled kids come to me with things, you know, I remember like Sundays prior to us having to leave, my mom just, even though all that stuff was happening, she was still a good mom, you know, like she understood. But there's one thing I always remember: Sundays, she'd be like, get your laundry ready. Okay. And you think this stuff is normal. So get your laundry ready meant get the dish detergent one at a time. You go to the bathtub and you wash your clothes in the dang bathtub with dish detergent, and you rinse them out and you hang them outside. That was washing and drying, right? Okay. And then you learn that's not normal. That's not normal. Me and that's what friends and I, that's what we did. That's what we knew, you know, just kind of the struggle of poverty. I also recall one time going to bed, like my mom and Willie aren't home, and it's kind of normal, unfortunately. I was like, I guess we're not eating dinner tonight. There's no dinner here. And it's like a school night. Sadly, again, reflection. This was normal. So it's like, well, we're just not eating. So, all right, let's get to bed, guys. I'm kind of like the dad here. Yeah. You know, and my mom wakes us up at like 2 a.m. because she did come home and found some money and fried some chicken, and like it was delicious. I still remember these ingrained moments. It was such a good meal, you know. And then I just go to school the next day, right? And teachers are like, well, you better be learning. It's like, I'm tired. Yeah. You know, so, you know, and probably as I think about these stories, and, you know, I was able to be a teacher and administrator. Mm-hmm. So when you have a kid come to you that's like the real life issues are occurring, I, again, am thankful, as much as I didn't enjoy it in the moment, thankful for the experience to have like some empathy about a kid's situation, a parent situation. You know, I'm very reflective of my mom and what she had as a parent had to just daily deal with. Guess have kids, man. Like, you know, those are my lifelines, man. Like I'm worried about them at all times, and I want to do right by them, you know. And unfortunately for her, she had to realize I'm not doing right by my kids. You know, I'm trying to, and unfortunately I'm making wrong decisions to try to make it work. And, you know, but anyway, back to Licking Heights, you know, playing sports, that's really what ingrained me in that community. It's where my friends grew out of. And obviously stayed there. That was the most consistent run of my life in terms of once I got there and started 6th grade, you know, I graduated as a senior from the high school, you know. And so Kirby and Eugene, you know, my uncle Eugene, I mean, they had 2 kids as well, and they bring me in, my siblings in. Like, again, they didn't have to do that. You know, I can't imagine having a whole other group of kids come in my house now. But it provided us the stability we needed, you know, sports. And then, you know, I've always been very accountable to schoolwork. I don't know if I was always smart, but I was like, the teacher said I had to do something, I had to do that. Yeah. I got to turn my homework in. And so people are like, he's smart. And I was like, I just do my work, I guess. I don't know if I'm smart. I've met a lot smarter people. So I'm just thankful for, you know, Kirby, Eugene. Eugene's now passed, my man, you know, one of my father figures. You know, Kirby's still kicking, but so thankful for her just because, and she's a God-fearing woman, and she understood, like, it's, you know, God chooses some people, you know, to do the right thing so others can have. And that's what she was for me. You know, obviously finished through high school, had a great career at Licking Heights, played basketball, played football, ran track, couldn't play baseball. They were hating on me, they didn't let me play. But Coach Boyer, shout out to you, man. I appreciate the opportunity. But had a successful run, played, I mean, I think I lettered in every sport since my freshman year, you know. Awesome. So like played as a freshman in football. I did not play as a freshman in basketball. Dressed up, but sat the pine, played JV, you know, but then ran track. And
you remember how big you were, like as a freshman, sophomore?
Ooh. You know, I was a pretty tall 8th grader. I was like 5'6.5", 5'7".
So you peaked early, man.
Very early. I have a buddy, Josh, who is now 6'6" now. But I want to say he and I were like eye to eye in 8th grade, and then freshman year, I'm like looking at his knees, you know. So like he got it faster than me, but I think I was like 5'7" going into it, maybe 5'7", 150 pounds. Yeah. You know, graduated at like 5'8", 175, and then finished at UD at like a stout 193. That's great. Yeah.
So you graduate high school. Sounds like your aunt and uncle were, I mean, that is everything that you needed in life at that time. Those mentors, those essentially parents that you hadn't had that stability before. You graduate high school. What's next?
Yeah. I knew that I was vertically challenged. Loved playing basketball, but that wasn't going to be the move. Wasn't going to be a Division I athlete. I think we all have the visions of grandeur. I remember going to an Ohio State game because you just could. As an athlete in Ohio, your football coach could ask for tickets, and Coach Beck was the man. I mean, that's a great mentor in my life. But took us to an Ohio State game, and I was like, this is a recruiting trip. I'm on the field. They want me, so I'll probably be playing for John Cooper again a little bit, And, that didn't work out. And so, visited Miami, Toledo, and got these preferred walk-ons. And, Dave Wilding calls, University of Dayton. I don't even know that Dayton's a Catholic university at this time. And I didn't know they had a football team. I mean, and Dave Wilding calls and says he wants to come and visit me at school. And I thought that was the coolest thing in the world. And so Dave Wilding is in Licking Heights, and it's a small school. And he's wearing his UD jacket and, his mustache, and it was like the school stopped. There's like, Marcus has a college coach here. He's going to go to the NFL. It was like no one cared who it was, but he visited the school. Like, we had a great conversation. And he says, I'm coming back next week. I want to have dinner with your family. And I was like, you're going to come to my house?
Yeah.
It's like, so he comes and visits the house and, meets my aunt and uncle and gets me to visit up the University of Dayton. And it was a great time. Again, I think I had a great visit. Got to meet, they used to have the guys sit at the table and, talk to you about what your experience. It was all good. It wasn't hard work. It was easy. You just play football. You didn't have like 3-a-days or meetings till 10 p.m. And like, no one talked about that stuff.
Right.
Then they're like, we're going to go to KU. And I go to KU and I get like a pizza, a cheesesteak, Powerade with the yogurt. And I was like, this is amazing. I'm coming to this place, you know? And I give Coach Wilding just a lot of credit. He just made me feel important. It just made me feel like that was the place for me, and that he was just so interested in who I was as a football player. And I remember saying I wanted to go, and my aunt and uncle were like, it's expensive.
Yeah.
It's expensive here. Another, I guess, blessing, but also sad part to it all is, you apply for FAFSA.
Yeah.
And so we're doing this paper. We're trying to make it work. They're like, well, let's explore and see how we can make this work. And we get to a point, and they're like, I think we have to check this box. And it says, are you a ward of the court? And I was like, what the heck is a ward of the court, right? So, going back to the beginning story, my parents, because of the situation, lost custody of us kiddos. And we were never really adopted to, my aunt and uncle just took us in, as guardians. And so, but there was never like a formal, who are these kids' parents?
Right.
I was a freaking like Oliver Twist, like it was a heart-wrenching moment. Like, I don't have any parents on paper. What the heck is going on?
Yeah.
And, but we clicked this box, ward of the court. And I mean, I'm thankful, I'm not big on, handouts and those types of things, but, I was able to gain some, some assistance. Also, I had great grades in high school.
Yeah.
Right. So I had a 3.8 and handle my business in the classroom. And so there was also that type of scholarship help, but there were some like federal grants and things that I qualified for that helped make it work. I'm just thankful because when I look back at being able to go to the University of Dayton, from the situation I was in, should not have happened, but somehow it did. I also have to think like Coach Kelly, and I talked to you about this, like as he knew my story, I'm sure, I don't know how it all worked. I even needed like a 5th year and I still had no money, and it still worked out. And now I'm debt free. I paid my debts. You know what I mean? Like I'm just thinking, however it worked out, it just did. But I still recall it. Like, we have to click this box, ward of the court. I'm like, what does that mean? And they had to explain that. And I'm like an 18-year-old kid. Like, well, you technically. So I was like, that's pretty traumatic. Like, man,
that is
parents, gosh darn, man. So, I guess on paper, I still don't have parents on paper. Crazy. But anyway, get to UD through Coach Wilding, just being such a great recruiter, a great coach, a great mentor. And can I tell you a funny story about Coach? This is great. So, he's my friend. He's like my best friend now because he recruited me. And we get to we get there for move-in day. And you got the big brother, Tim Bates was my big brother. He's helping move me into Stewart Hall. So I'm like, that's great. This is awesome at UD. And we have to go to this big meeting in, I think it was in Merriam.
Yeah, Merriam Hall.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so all our parents are there.
Yeah.
And Coach Kelly's like, now I want you to say goodbye to your little babies.
Yeah.
Right, because we had to go get weighed in and get our stuff ready and eat this little punk turkey sandwich before we go run Beast ×5.
Yeah.
And, so I'm hugging my Aunt Kerb and she's crying and I'm crying and it was just proud. I was like, we did it. We're here. Marcus is in college and the first one to do it, And so she leaves and I go and Coach Kelly we go over, get bussed over to the field. Offense is down on this end. I know I'm playing defense, so I'm down on this end. But my best friend, Coach Wilding, is the offensive coach. And he's across the 50-yard line. And I was like, I got to say hi to my best friend. I'm here because of him. So I walk my dumb freshman self across the 50-yard line and say, hey, Coach Wilding. He said, get your butt across that. Don't you ever come back across that line. I was like, oh, my gosh.
Is this the same guy?
Oh, my gosh. What are you talking about? You're in my living room. You were smoozing my aunt and uncle. But it was a moment I'm in college football now. So, and he's got to run his group now. He's done his job in recruiting. Now we got to, run our option stuff out of the eye. And he's got to focus on that and get Dave George lined up. And I'm in his way. And, but that was a cool moment. And that you become a coach and the freshman tries to bother you. I'm like, get out of my face.
That's right.
Yeah. That's how I got to UD. I give Coach Wooding a lot of credit. Coach Kelly. I actually didn't know he was going to be my position coach till I got there for the meeting. He's like, I coach the DBs. And I was like, I got the head coach as my coach. This guy. So, but what a blessing he was, man. I always remembered him drawing. You probably remember this, Dan. I don't know. He put stuff on the board and he sat here's how we're going to line up and do this. And I was like, well, we got 13 defenders up there. And he would just by the time we finished the meeting, his whole hand was blue and he's wiping, didn't believe in an eraser. I was like, Coach, you got 12 guys up there, man. Of course we're going to stop that. You can only have 11. But but blessing to be at UD, man. Blessing. That was such a great find and opportunity for me.
Yeah. And I was trying to think back because you would have came in, you would have been a freshman when I was a junior.
I think I got 2 years with you.
Yeah. And my early memories of you is just like what we've got right now. That smile, that enthusiasm, just an energetic kid. You didn't know a stranger. And, I was telling Ben this morning at the office, I said, I don't really know Marcus's story. I just know Coach Kelly said we need to talk, and then from you and I having the conversation and hearing what you went through as a child, and knowing there's a lot more to that story, and knowing the man that you are now and what you've accomplished after being at the University of Dayton, coaching and teaching that we're going to talk about, it's amazing.
I appreciate that. I mean, you made a comment yesterday about talk about your successes, and I'm probably too humble at times, but I think I said this yesterday. I feel like I'm at a point in my career. I'm I don't know what I want to do when I grow up still. Yeah. And I don't feel like I've done something yet, and, sometimes I need to reflect you've taught a lot of kids, you coached a lot of kids, win, lose, or draw. That's success, just the fact that you can be, I hope a role model, specifically a male, even more specifically a black male role model for kids who I would have been grateful to have in my life, in my early days of growing. So no, I appreciate that. And, I live by, and I coach Boyer freshman year, and this has been a mantra of mine, not just through coaching, but also my life to this day, is Coach Boyer telling us as freshmen in high school, to the football team, but I'm a freshman. He says, guys, there's the 3 easiest things to do in life: quit, complain, and make excuses. Never do them, right? And so powerful. Yeah. So when you think about it, it's I had this life. This happened. Washed my clothes in the bathtub consistently on Sundays. It was a cultural part of my life. So it happened. right? So, but don't make excuses. Okay, so you still got here, right? So it helped formed you, right? Yeah. We didn't win the game. The referee, don't complain about it.
Right.
Referee didn't do it, right? Sure, I didn't like the call either, but man, we held and we jumped off sides, and and it gets too hard. And there's moments. I mean, when you coach, it's some of those Friday nights are tough when it doesn't go your way, and somehow you'll be up at 7 a.m. the next day for film with these kids and have some type of like look on your face that tells them that's unfortunate. We got to move on. We're not quitting, right. So it's, I'm very reflective. I'm thankful for that mantra. I was a 14-year-old kid because I needed it, not to just kind of, woe is me ever. It's never that. There's always a next step. You got to move forward. My first year as head coach, I'm 30 years old. I'd been at CJ. I went to University of Dayton, and we'll talk about that probably more a little bit. But, I graduated. Before graduating, student taught at CJ. At the time, I student taught at a place I was like, I think it's Chaminade Julienne. What is this place? There's Spiker and Chris Cowan. Mm-hmm. Those guys were at. And Spiker was a dude, by the way. I've seen a lot of film on him at CJ, by the way.
He's a stud.
But anyway, I get to CJ as a student teacher, and really enjoying it, enjoying the classroom. And Ellen Downer was my cooperating teacher. She was amazing, still a great mentor of mine. She's retired. I'm so happy for her. She's retired and she is not back substituting. And I love that about her. Like, people teach and then it's like, I'm retired. And then next year they're back in the classroom substituting. She's like, I'm not doing it. But student teach, and then it's time to get a job. And I'm trying to organize getting a job around going to Dayton and Daytona, of course, because that's important. And
well, let's stop there. For Dayton to Daytona, for those who don't know, that was always like the end of year thing where there was a bunch of students. It was kind of like spring break, but after spring break, early summer break, where, there would be maybe 1,000, maybe a couple thousand kids that would go down to Daytona, Florida, all be in one hotel, one or two pools.
Debauchery.
Yes.
Yeah. UD, shout out to UD. They've now regulated that thing a lot.
Have they?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
There's a lot of you gotta be 20, before you even can go. There's a lot of, just because.
Yeah. My kids would never go to that.
I'm not sure I would.
Not that I went.
I did. I thought I was fairly responsible, but I saw.
Oh yeah.
Saw some. Yeah. I'm like, wow. Yeah. But anyway, so
moving on.
Yeah. So student teaching, finishing that up at CJ, and it's time to get a job. And so I'm applying at Dayton Public, and applied at Trotwood Madison. I applied at Mason High School, and got some really cool interviews. Had an offer to teach at Trotwood and coach, and they were building that new school, and Coach Douglas was there, and they went on. They were kind of rising up in football, and Mason, really nice school, really nice entry pay as well, and but I'm looking at these offers, and I'm talking to Coach Jim Place at CJ, who's the head football coach at the time, and I say, I really want to coach. I really like being at CJ. I don't know if there's anything here for me. There wasn't even a teaching job, and just so happened, Father Pat, but used to be Brother Pat, was a social studies teacher who was going to take 2 years and go be in Italy for 2 years on his way to, the priesthood. And so this social studies job opens up at CJ as I have this offer from Trotwood, and I'm kind of thinking about this offer from Mason. Actually, I never got the offer from Mason. I said yes to CJ before if it was coming. I don't know.
Right.
But this thing opens up, and I'm like, well, yeah. And I say, Coach Place, I got a teaching offer, would love to coach football. And he's like, we don't have any positions. You know how to coach basketball? And I was like, what? Coach basketball? You can roll a ball out there? And no disrespect basketball coaches, but no, I wanted to coach football. And so I was like, well, I guess I'm going to go take this Trotwood job. And I'm in my dorm, not my dorm, I'm on Stone Mill in my house.
Yeah, in the
ghetto. And I get ready to call Trotwood, and my phone rings. And it's Coach Jim Place. And he says, you got to know how he talks. Coach Marcus. He's really excited. Hey, Coach, how are you? We got a coaching job for you. I was like, okay, this sounds great. He said, only problem is I can only pay you $500. And my thought was, you get paid to coach? I thought you just because you were at the school, you just like did the. So that's the best mindset ever.
Yeah,
like if you have that
absolutely.
mindset,
Right.
Yeah.
you know, because when you coach, it's pretty much for free.
Now,
Especially,
I'm going to stop you there. Do you remember Coach Kelly saying that? Sitting here? Coach
Yep.
Kelly said the same thing. Well, he knew that he wanted to be a teacher and a coach when he was a young kid because his gym teacher, he was shocked when he asked his gym teacher, you get paid to do this? And he said, yeah. And he said from that point on, he knew that he wanted to be a teacher and a coach. So anyways, moving on,
Right.
same thing.
right? So that was a great discovery for me. I was like, well, Coach, I'll take $500. That's more than I thought. You know, I just thought, you know, it's just the young-minded guy. I'm just ready to go save the world and teach kids and coach the sport. So, so then CJ had offered the teaching job. I had not accepted it. And then Coach Place offered this. I was like, I think I'm going to do it. But again, we're leaving for Daytona, like the next
Priorities.
Yeah. So I was like, well, let me just sleep on it, you know, and get to Daytona, and I'm like on a beach on one of the mornings, early morning, and I called to CJ to say I'm accepting the job, and still remember that because it was like everyone was still sleeping. I don't know why they were so sleepy. I don't know. You know, and I'm on the beach, like having this like life moment, like I got a job. I'm going to coach football.
Yeah.
And I'm fired up about what I think I can do in this life, you know, and never understood in that moment how blessed I would be to be part of the Chaminade Julienne community. Like if you're like, hey, match the perfect school with Marcus's heart, it's CJ. You know, my heart lives in that mission. And so the more I was there, and I, you know, was a teacher I taught for 15 years, social studies, coached for my first 7 years. I was an assistant coach. First 7, the last 5 of that 7, I was defensive coordinator. And then, you know, CJ made a decision, you know, Coach Andy Helms, you know, who gave me the opportunity. And so, you know, I hated seeing him have to leave because I was, you know, very loyal to him. Still am to this day, one of my very good friends. In fact, his wife is my son Isaiah's godmother, you know,
Okay.
so she was our babysitter as well. So, but I thought to myself, well, I probably won't get the head coaching job. This is CJ. Like, it's a great place. And
had a lot of success, right? When Coach Place was there was a state championship.
2002 state championship. My first year with CJ was 2004. We lost in the regional final, tough one to St. Mary's. We lost our guy, Javon Ringer, that year.
Michigan State,
tore his
right.
ACL that year. And so you hated that for him. And, you know, there's no doubt it affected us mentally. You ever seen the movie Friday Night Lights?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
So this year, that year that movie came out, Javon is like week 7 versus McNicholas. We're up 45-0, and our punt return doesn't go out. So Javon, being the hero he is, runs out to return the punt, catches the punt, runs, never gets hit, makes a cut. Now, right? Shouldn't have been out there. It is what it is. And so we now, you know, lose that game, or we win the game, and then we go like to Elder next week.
Yeah.
Heard you talk about that with Van Vliet, you know, down the pit.
Yep.
And that was cool. except we were reeling, you know, Superman for us was down and the pit was rocking and whew, that was a tough game. And so we get to the end of the year and we're kind of like shaking a little bit as we go to the playoffs, and Coach Place says, we're doing a team event. We're going to watch a movie. We're going to watch Friday Night Lights. Now, he had never watched this movie before, nor read the book, right? Nor have I. And so as we're watching this movie, it was like so counterproductive. Like you see Booby get hurt.
Yeah.
Yep.
Booby's hurt, and then they don't win, and I'm like, well, I don't want to be reminded of that, you know. But so that was a tough year. But anyway, I lost to St. Mary's that year, and never made it back to the state. You know, It's hard to win. It's hard to win, especially at a CJ when you gotta play a schedule that's tough. In your league, you got Alter, you got Baden, you got Fenwick. Carroll was at that time, you know, good. They're 4-1 now, though, getting back. So just was never easy, you know, just to get to the playoffs at that time and then to even advance through the playoffs. So, but I'm 30 years old and I'm saying I am going to apply for the job, you know, and CJ will be nice to me and they'll give me an interview for sure. Right.
Yeah.
And they do. And so I've applied. I'm sitting with Coach Place multiple times, just trying to learn, like, I think I'm ready to be a head coach, but I also understand if they don't hire me, that I'm probably also not ready. Like, I get it. I get it. And from what I understood, there were over 40 candidates. And I get an interview. I get called back for a second interview as one of the top 4 finalists.
Okay.
And I knew the other 3, and I'm like, well, those guys are great coaches, so humble up and be ready to serve. And it kind of goes by. So my current boss, John Marshall, was our principal at the time, who was, going to sign off on that hire. And I was told, you're going to know an answer by Wednesday. Okay. So, of course, Monday, I'm trying to teach. So it's Wednesday. Hadn't heard a word. It's 3:00. The bell rings. School day's over. I'm like, dang, no one's come to talk to me. Okay, word up. John Marshall, my then principal, walks into my classroom, and it's the spring, and it was a hot day. So, and we don't have air conditioning.
Okay. And
he walks in, I'm like, here it is. It's me, it's him. I'm going to learn. And he looks in, and he's like, man, your classroom's kind of hot. And he looks at the temperature on the wall, and it was like 92-degree feel in the classroom. He's like, well, it's not 95, so you're okay. And he walks out. And I was like,
that's it?
What? What just happened? So I'm in here like, well, that's not good. He's not even thinking about me. Like, they told me this was the day, and he doesn't even know this is the day. They must have. So I call my wife defeated, and I'm like, I don't think I'm going to get the job, but it's okay. Like, I've prepared myself, like I understand. And he called me like 5:00 that night. I'm at home. He says, can you come back for a conversation at CJ tonight? And I was like, absolutely, yeah. And gave me the news that they were going to move forward with me as the head football coach. I cried like a baby,
That's awesome.
So, but I was like, were you just playing with me earlier, man? Like, that wasn't cool, He was like, no, I honestly was checking the different classroom temperatures because we need to, if it's too hot, I was like, John, that wasn't cool at all. But that was a cool moment just because, again, I never feel deserving, and maybe I will always approach that way at CJ. Just there's so much honor that place is owed that, I don't feel deserving of anything, that, whatever's granted, it's like, go work your tail off to honor, whatever position they're putting you in to grow that mission and help that community. 30-year-old head coach at Chaminade Julienne, man. And so just figuring that out, our first year, we go 0-2 to start, lose to Troy 31-0. They have a running back named Marcus Foster who went to UC, was a really good player, and he ran all through us. And then we played now CJ's head football coach, Earl White, was at Thurgood, Colonel White at the time, and he had a really good run there, and they beat us 21-0. And so it's, 52-0. I'm 30 years old, 52-0. Hadn't scored. We're 0-2. The coaches all go home from our second game, and I find myself in the coach's office. I talk about the quote, don't quit, complain, make excuses. And I'm washing my hands after using the restroom and just so happened to look up in the mirror. And it was a moment, again, life moment. And it's like, oh, this didn't go in the way you thought. You had visions of grandeur, like this is really hard to do. But again, it's like, what's the next step? Well, we got to get here at 7 a.m. tomorrow for film and review the Colonel White game and figure out how we're going to go beat Meadowdale. And, one of the best moments I've had many great moments in coaching, but this senior class that year, my first year, Mitch Jones, Sean Valdick, Darian Jones, Darren Reynolds, Marco Gresham, these guys that were just rock solid, Sammy Spees. Mitch Jones comes to the coach's office at 3:15. We stretch at 3:25. Maybe it's like 3:10. He says, Coach, I got the football team. We're going to stretch early. We want extra work today. And I was like, oh, no one asked him to do that, So we get out there, and they've already stretched, and we're right in our indie, our group stuff, and we gained 10 minutes. And so we, kind of worked some extra game plan stuff, and we'd go on to win 7 in a row. Lost to Alter our last game, tough one, but then made a run to the regional final, my first year. Clinton Massey beats us, unfortunately, on a walk-off touchdown, and they would go on to win 2 state championships. I mean, they had a good run, and I reflect on it like I just didn't know, but that should have been us. You mature and you grow. But I end that first year I think I can do this. I think
Yeah.
I can do this. Had some humbling years after, but, I think 11 years head coach at CJ, before I decided to move on and try something new. But 11 very formative years for me, in terms of, like, we played at Marion Local, we played at Columbus DeSales, we played at Bishop Hartley. We
Some
played,
powers.
yeah, we hosted Moeller.
Yeah.
So like we ain't scared, didn't win all those games, of
Right.
course. But, I just like the fact that I was at a place that supported us and we became what I would say strong enough to go play those types of teams, win or lose. Like I just really enjoyed what CJ had provided for me as a football coach. Like, the honor of standing on that sideline, the honor of taking these kids to these cool places. Like I'm taking my city boys to Marion Local and the silos. And, I knew it was real too, by the way. We're driving up through, I can't, you drive, there's 7 schools all within like 2 miles.
Right, yeah.
Minster's got this beautiful complex, Coldwater,
St. Henry,
saying all of them, just
yeah.
New Bremen, like,
Yeah.
and you get to, Marion Local. And we're driving down the street, and there's this house. And I'm assuming they do this for every game, but my coaching heart kind of like, I knew Marion Local was good, but I knew we were in trouble when we drove by this house, and this house had like no trees in the front. It had this big rock, and it was painted blue and yellow, and it said "Beat CJ." Like I was like, someone spent time, and maybe they do that every week for every opponent. But I was like, this community is not playing around, And I couldn't get our kids to understand, like. It's Division 7, that we're playing this small school, and I'm like, no, guys, no, listen, like this is the real, this is tradition. Like I was like Marion Local's best marketing director that week, just like showing them like the history of this place and what they've done in their state championship and Coach Goodwin, and but we didn't fare well. Our kids played tough. They had Dirksen, that kid went to Notre Dame to play tackle. This big tackle they had was a problem, for us, but so thankful just for, just the experiences as a football coach to be in front of kids and then get them to experience, those opportunities.
And, you talk about the wins and losses and I can look back on my career at Dayton and on high school, and you can remember all that stuff, but the experiences that you talk about, just like the kid coming in and saying, hey, coach, we're here early, we want to stretch early. I think you would agree. Aren't those the most fulfilling moments that you'll carry with you for the rest of your life? Because the wins and losses come and go, and they hurt and they feel great. But when you can impact a team or a kid or an individual who may have been just like you growing up, that's where you really feel fulfilled in life.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. And I think, again, as I've heard you on this, this podcast, it's not about the wins and losses. You probably don't even remember a lot of the wins.
Right.
You definitely remember the losses. Those
Yes.
things sting. But yes, those formative moments when a kid gets it, John Bell, who had just as tough as life as me, as a kid. I mean, this kid, you need him on your podcast, hear about this kid's story. And Jackie Lawfer, the principal at Our Lady of Rosary, who took him under her wing because his dad was in jail and his mom had passed from a drug overdose, and he's being raised by his dad's girlfriend, but he's at CJ and doesn't like to come to school, and we're not getting great parent partnership because they're just not there. And so you relied on the principal of the grade school of this kid, and it was like, we got to love on this kid.
Yeah.
Like, he's got to be us. Like, I got to pick John Bell up. Sorry, that's against the law. You're not supposed to pick, but he needed to get to school. He needed to get to practice. And so it became like myself, Coach Hard and Coach Mo, who's got John this week? And so then John becomes a junior, and it's like, John, don't miss school anymore. And that's it's his embrace of what we're doing and what's important to him. If John Bell talk to you right now, he's now working in construction. He's doing a great job in his adult life.
Yeah.
He would tell you, if he didn't have football, he would have not had a high school diploma. It was football.
Yeah.
And clearly the relationships with his coaches.
For sure.
And clearly the embracement of that community that CJ, that diverse community that we're all one, at some point once we get in. I always say, you be careful when you come to CJ, because if you don't know where you're going to go to high school, or you're a parent, you think you know where your kid's going to go and you just want to learn about CJ, You walk in that hall and you breathe that oxygen. Boy, it's
Hook, line, and
things
sinker, right?
change. I don't know what it is, but yeah. So for you saying that John Bell was in the center of my mind there, just he got it, and then became an all-league player his senior year. We go back to the regional final, lose to a really tough Trotwood team. Man, they won the state, and they had beat Pick Central, who was the Division I state champion.
Yeah.
So we lost to the best team in the state of Ohio that year in the regional final. We just couldn't overcome them. But that's his senior year, that he worked for. Let me tell you a funny story about John Bell and Marion Local, though. This is great. John, as perfect as I want to talk to him about being, and he did overcome a lot. He did have his moments where he would become juvenile Johnny, and he doesn't come to practice one day. Like, where's John? He's not answering the phone. Like, we're like worried.
Right.
We do get a hold of Megan, who was the dad's girlfriend who he lived with. And she says, oh no, he's getting a tattoo.
Oh boy.
So I'm like, I'm not happy, right? We're missing practice because of a tattoo. Comes to practice the next day with this arm sleeve, and he's like, "Well, I can't lift. I got a tattoo." And it wasn't even me; it was Coach Mo, who used a very choice words about Marion Local tattooing his ASS, right? Because he's not prepared for the game, Right. And I remember John, because you have to know he's East Side kid, tough, independent. He was mad that he was getting scolded, but I remember him going to get the bar and doing his warm up. He worked out, right? He didn't think he was going to work out. He thought he was going to. You got this tattoo. We're going to baby your tattoo. Forget your tattoo.
That's right.
You picked the wrong time to get a tattoo, right?
Right.
And he had to do his running for missing practice, and but I remember that scolding. Coach Mo was going to tattoo your. And he didn't like that, But his response, maybe 2 years before that, his response would be like, "Forget you, coach. I'm out here."
Yeah.
But his response was, "Buck up, shut up,
Let's
go
go.
get your workout in," right? So,
life lesson.
Shout out John Bell, man. What a great dude. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. So let's back up a little quick, because there's a point, and I think it's at UD, where you meet your now wife.
Correct.
Kind of talk about her a little bit.
Yeah, she's amazing. She's on her way to Atlanta today, leaving me hanging for 2 days with all the kid events, but it's all good. No, she's Amanda, she's from Findlay, Ohio. She was a track star in high school. Track cross country. She also played volleyball. She's a very talented volleyball player in basketball. She's like me, so played a lot of sports. Yeah. And I met her our freshman year, but it was very innocent. Kind of like a friend through friends. We met each other, and I actually remember we had a class together, communications, and I had met Amanda the first semester of my freshman year, and this is now second semester. And I'm walking through this class, and I walk by her, recognize her, but I don't remember her name. Yeah. And she says, "Hey, Marcus, how are you?" And I was like, "Hey."
Hey, you.
Right. I hate that because she deserved me to know her name in that moment. But, it just so worked out. There was a project you had to do, and it was a team project, and we got grouped together on this thing. And we then learned after this project that we both had this 10 o'clock class, and then at 11 o'clock we didn't have a class, and then 12 o'clock we did. So we'd go from this 10 o'clock class, 11 o'clock we'd go to KU, watch Price is Right, and have lunch, right? We're oblivious to the fact that might be interested in one another. It wasn't even it was just no, Amanda's cool. Yeah. I don't have a girlfriend. I don't even know what I'm doing in college yet, and and then that kind of ends. I might say she might have been dating someone. She might have. So it wasn't even it was just how it kind of worked out. And that summer, I think I probably got noticed that she was available, and I think I did some things I was working for Ohio Department of Transportation in Columbus. When I go back home, so I was working for ODOT, and my job was to take travel. You come in from out of state, those travel brochures at the rest areas. Right. I stocked them. Okay. That's what I did. So I would work 2 days in the warehouse, and the other 3 days I'm traveling to Ashtabula, Mark Kasmer's house, and Bowling Green, and all over the state, just those entry points. But one of them was in up near Findlay, and so I would call her and say, hey, I'm going to be up if you have time for lunch. And she's just a workaholic. Like she said, I only have a half hour for lunch, so I can't. I'm just like, man, I can't get any of this girl's time. So I like sent her some flowers. She calls me like, did you send me flowers? I was like, I did. She's like, oh, those are so pretty. Thank you so much. See you later. Bye. I'm like, gosh. I was like, I have no game, you know, like how do I get this girl to recognize that I kind of wouldn't mind, like, you know, I've enjoyed our Price is Right dates. Yeah. Now that I reflect on this, I kind of miss her and miss Price is Right. And, and then sophomore year, she's living in VWK. Yeah. I'm in VWK. Again, I kind of maybe gave up, like, well, maybe she doesn't see me the same way.
Right.
And so we go to play Yale. Oh. So that's your senior year. We got our butts whooped, man. Rashard Bartholomew and with the running back, they had the tight end.
Eric Johnson.
Yeah, he broke the record. And they
so.
broke the winning record that day. We were on ESPN. They were like the first team to win 800 games. Yeah, I remember Jermaine Bailey getting hit. My good friend, Jermaine. He was like a swing pass, and he caught this swing pass, and it might have been Than Merrill, I think, was their safety. He ended up playing for the Buccaneers. Than Merrill's now doing like...
Oh, yeah, he's big time.
Yeah,
he's like a billionaire.
Yeah, like doing like rebuild flip homes on like
he's got his own show.
But I remember, I'll tell you another story about Than Merrill that game. But Than Merrill runs through Jermaine. I mean, Jermaine never saw it. His like helmet went this way, his ear pad went that way. He gets up with that smile with the mouthpiece still in, you know, gets his ear pad, puts it together. I remember like, my good friend just got... Oh, he just got ran through. Yeah. But I think the opening kickoff, I'm running down on kickoff, and Than Merrill is blocking me. He's literally pulling me up off the ground, right? And he is cursing at me like I knew him and did something wrong to him. Like, you're not gonna get. And I think I was a gunner, so maybe they were scouting me. Maybe they were like, hey, you got to block this guy, you know. But I remember like a lump in my throat, like. I'm not sure I want to run back down. That guy's kind of crazy, right? And then you see like he'd become like an NFL player. Like, well, good. He should have been. But anyway, we go to Yale. We don't win the game, and I was pretty upset about it. I was serious about my football, and so we get back from Yale off the plane, and of course there's time to go out. So like, all my roommates, Gino, Ben, they're all like, going out. And I was like, I don't think I'm going out tonight. I think I'm just gonna, I'm kind of sad. Yeah. My feelings a little bit. And so I get a message from Amanda on instant message. Are you in your room? Yeah. She's like, my friends are out. Do you want to come by? I was like, yeah. So we like watched a movie. Yeah. Right. I call it like our first real date. Okay. Right. And so like I go back to my room, wake up the next day, and I was like, man, that was really fun. Yeah. Really fun. And so I think we went to like Wendy's because she had a car, went like by the Dayton Mall. It was like a trip, like you're like leaving the country almost. Big time. Yeah. Went to Wendy's and then just kind of happened. The rest started dating history. There and very lucky. She, she was a business major. So she graduated. You talk about someone motivating you. She graduated in 4.5 years with her MBA. Wow. And then a year later had her CPA. Wow. And she was working at Deloitte & Touche downtown while I'm student teaching. So she's like bawling, and I'm like broke, and I'm like, I got it.
Well, you got your $500 coaching salary.
There you go. And but she stayed in Dayton. She will say now, like she did have interest in it working out. That's why she wanted to stay close. Yeah. And I was like, well, if you're in Dayton, I want to be in Dayton. That's why the CJ thing worked out so well. And, she later moved from Deloitte. She works now for Semi-Limited, which, if in Dayton, Ohio, the Mattil family, which is just an ingrained part of that city, even more specifically CJ, but any other, you talk about philanthropy and serving, and I know they probably always were. Are they doing enough? They do so much. Right. So she's been with them now the last 20 plus years. Whatever her job is now, it used to be taxes and accounting, and now it's like, there's some client service stuff in it, and that's why she's out of town. But yeah, I'm very thankful that worked out. Yeah. Hands down. Yeah. So she's a blessing in my life and helped me to, in fact, I remember being in, junior year, and like I didn't have like a great first semester. And I was like, I gotta get better. And I think I graduated UD with like a 3.2
Yeah.
But at the time I had like a 2.8, which I mean, horrible, but I was like, you're better than that, you know?
Yeah.
But it was her. It was like I needed to be better because she was so good, you know, at everything she was doing. So, and that remains the same to this day. You know, we're now married 17 years and stuff with kids and stuff. It's like, I got to follow her.
Yeah.
You know, I said, the man's the head of the household. I was like, I mean, it depends to me. I kind of follow and do what I'm told, man, because that has been a good recipe for us.
And I think it's pretty obvious, Ben. I mean, you're here on this earth to change lives. I mean, there is no doubt what you went through as a child, you know, growing up, being raised by your aunt and uncle, and everything that you went through in those early days has hardened you and opened your mind and your heart to help others, right? And I think that's why you're at where you're at. I think that's why, you know, you said your boss has hired you 3 times for 3 different positions.
Third time, yeah.
Yeah, you know, there's a reason, right? He knows what you have to offer, you know, not only for the Chaminade Julienne community, but for those, more importantly, for those kids and those families. So as we go to land this plane, is there one, I know you've had a lot of mentors in your life, but is there one that you look back upon, and maybe it's early childhood, maybe it's high school, maybe it's college, maybe it's somebody that you work with now, that you think, this person changed my life for the better?
Just one? I mean, gosh. I mean, Jim Place, I can't say enough about him. Like, he's not human to me sometimes, just because of like what he's been able to capture and do. I mean, you talk about like serving and being a motivator of men, of people like me, and then not just motivating, but also just being there to make sure we can keep moving forward. Even like, so I just saw him last week at a CJ event, and then today, before I came here, Brett Schmiel, who's works alongside me in development, he said, Coach Place sent me an email and said it was good to see me the other day. And I was like, how'd that make you feel? He's like, great. I'm gonna have a great day. And that's just what he does.
Yeah.
You see Coach Place, it could just be, hi, hey, Marcus. It could be an email, could be a text message. He always ends everything with smile, right? He's a big, tough guy, but he's got a teddy bear side to him. You just feel better about life. You know, so when I think about myself as a coach, people are like, you just want to be like Coach Place. I was like, I try every day.
Yeah.
I try every day.
That's
yes,
awesome.
Yes, absolutely. If you're telling me that's who I make you think about, then I'm good with that. You know, I do have to go back to when I was playing Little League football. Coach Denny Corbett, who's now passed, you know, and this is, again, adults, which I'm proud to be, you know, a husband, father, a leader of people. To some young people, they see me as, you know, Denny Corbett, when I was 8 years old, he was my minis West Mountain Stars football coach, right? And I didn't know at the time, but he knew our struggle, right? So, like, how was I getting in practice? I was getting in Coach Denny's van with his son, Dustin, right? We're going to Canton Hall of Fame. What's that? You're coming with me. We're going to Canton Hall of Fame. You're going to go see the Hall of Fame NFL, right? I got to dream, like, I want to be here one day, right? We're going to go to a campsite in Indiana, somewhere around here. We went camping for a weekend. Never camped in my entire life, okay? But that's Coach Denny Corbett. So, like as a young kid, I fell in love with football because Coach Denny was my coach. And so, like, I knew I wanted to go to football because Coach Denny had me. Like, it was good. We're good. And Dustin, his son, was there. And, like, you know, he's now passed. And he and I had a relationship all the way through till he passed. I mean, he ended up moving out to Oregon, but we stayed in contact. And I know at least I was able to tell him how important he was to me as a young kid, going what I was going through, for me, thinking, unfortunately, that this is what you just do. It's normal, you know. Yeah. He knew that it wasn't normal, and that it was impactful for him to get me out of a situation as much as he could to experience Hall of Fame, camping in Indiana, like things I would have never done. So, I mean, when you ask that, those two people, but Jim Place, I guess, in my adult life, is just a mainstay, just a consistent. I could call him on the way back today, and he would answer and give me the time that I need. You know what I mean? And obviously has taught me a lot just about the consistency that is required to be a head football coach, not just amongst the kids you're coaching. You got coaches that you're trying to mentor. I think 5 of my now former coaches are head coaches. Coach Mo at Xenia, undefeated, top 10 in the state right now. And I taught him when he was in high school. So, but also how to lead a community, how to be, one with the community. It's bigger than just on the field coaching, man. It's like bringing everyone together. I know what Friday nights were at CJ, and it was our community gathering. And so we had to do our best to be on point, to try to win for sure, but the character of how we played, the preparedness, are we doing the right things? Are we disciplined? Are we putting on a good product? Are people proud of what we're doing? Yeah. Even if we don't finish with more points. Right. And they were, you know, and so, but I give him a lot of credit for that. Well, and I think, I Coach Place, I mean, we've talked about him on this podcast, and I think I've met him once or twice, and actually Van Vliet was just at some event last week where he was in charge of, and he listens to the podcast. So, he's gonna hear this, and I'm sure that he's gonna be very proud to hear you say that. But I know what a mentor he is to you and to probably hundreds or thousands of other people in this area. And then Coach Kelly as well. I mean, you look back on your life and you have all these people who set you up, who take you under under their wing and want to see you succeed. And then here you are doing the same thing. It's amazing, man. It's awesome. It's amazing. And that's what life is all about, right? Those are the things that these stories that we're trying to get out. And, it's what I do trying to teach young kids. It's what, Ben's in charge of the Pee Wee football program for Eaton, awesome. and I know he's picking up kids and taking them to practice that probably wouldn't be able to go. Right. I mean, you share very similar experiences that Marcus has been through. Yeah. Excuse me. And one of the big things I think of is, one of my good friends, Rev Ron, he pastors at Salem Church of God, but he helps coach at Northmont. And he said, you wouldn't imagine the amount of kids that don't have dads there or father figures. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the big things for him, because he kind of went through the same thing. It's just hearing your story, and then immediately John Bell popped in your head, right? Oh, boom. Yeah. Like, boom. Hands like down. That's, I always talk about like the one, like who is your one? And it sounds like one of many for you that you have, but and that God gave you the strength to get through all that stuff so you can just keep changing people's lives. It's amazing. And it's a testament of everybody that's really like built into you, I just love it. Yeah. Same, man. Same. And Coach Kelly, like that guy, just great experiences with him, but probably the more meaningful things, like Coach Kelly thinks about me in moments that are just random. Yeah. Like when I was coaching, I don't know, like Saturday morning, we win a game. Friday night, Saturday morning, I'm at the school because the JV's playing and we're getting film, and then we're going to break down next game film. And I get a message, nice win last night. Love you, man. MK. Yeah. Boom. Coach, I love those things. Like so simple. Yeah. Like he took 4 seconds. He clearly followed our game. Right. Nice win. Love you, man. Yeah. MK. Yeah. That's it, right? Yeah. I love those. I just got one from him Saturday. Just those are like so simple, but yet powerful. It is powerful. I'm going to coach really hard today. It's just for me in moments of life. It's not like I don't walk around motivated all the darn time. Sometimes I wake up in the morning like, hey, get these 2 feet on the ground, man, and get going. So I just think we all need those pick me ups. And so I try to be thoughtful of those things too. Yeah. Just about guys that I've coached with, or John Bell, or, those guys that are out living life. 'Cause I know there's some dog days of life. And so you can't just walk around, be happy and go lucky all the time. Sometimes things aren't going well and you need a little boost, man, a little pat on the back, a little bit of reassurance, just to know that someone's thinking about you. Yeah. I love the idea of team. That's probably why football is to me the greatest. Mm-hmm. For me personally, people get mad when I say that, but I think it's the greatest sport of all time, that's my selfish pick, but I think it just because it revolves around team. You got 11 guys, I don't know how many gaps, depending on what offense you're playing. Michigan would give you 25 gaps to cover, but you got to have gaps covered. And if one guy doesn't cover the gap, and even if you get the right run, fill, backside, it's a touchdown.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, one of the 11th didn't do it, you know, or you know, and it can be really tragic, you know, if we're not on the same page. And so just the beauty of all guys on the same page, working for the same goals, feeling the same emotion, the same hurt, the same joy, you know, all those things. Like, you know, I've always been here for it. You know, this is my first year not coaching football in 20. Man, I guess I don't know I was a student coach with Coach Kelly in 2003.
So
20, almost 21 years.
Yeah. So first year, you know. So
how's that feel?
It's different. It's different.
You got some time, right?
Lots of time. Like quality of life is awesome, but miss it. You know, hands down, miss it. My wife will find me scribbling. I think I was drawing up like some inside zone with the H-back cutting off against like a odd front stack and how you climb to the. She's like, "You're so weird." It's like, "You don't even coach." I was like, "I know, but there's always
Mine's
an
always
answer,
going.
huh?"
Yeah,
you know.
yeah.
So no, it's been great. Like having the time, but I do clearly miss it. You know, it's fun to watch it, but miss like the Sunday meetings with the guys. Obviously, the day in, day out with the grind with the kids. And, but I'm also equally enjoying. I'm equally enjoying like the less stressful
I bet.
quality of life for sure.
You talk about football being one of the reasons I think it's such a great sport too is, you know, you see one of your teammates get knocked down, you're helping them up, and you might be down 20 points, and it's a horrible day, but you're helping them back up. And I don't know, when you talk about you being more thoughtful, just imagine if we all were like a little bit more thoughtful in our day, you know, like somebody pops in your mind. Just, hey, how are you doing? You know, just flat out reach out, ask how they're
Send
doing.
them a text.
Be thoughtful. I mean, it's a big one. That's something we all can learn from.
Yeah. CJ has every year CJ does a hashtag kind of, what would you say, mantra, you know, for the kids to lean on, you know. I can't say enough great things about Chaminade Julienne, by the way, but this year's is be mindful, CJ. Be mindful, you know, kind of what you're saying, you know, just be thoughtful of people, be mindful about what you're doing, and if you can do more, and where your service is leading you. And but I always enjoy the hashtags of CJ. You know, we had mass last week where it was announced, and so it was like, yes, be mindful, CJ. So but I think that's something great to walk away with. You know, like I'm gonna walk away today and think, I'm gonna text John Bell. I'm texting you in like 30 minutes, man. I might call you, you know. But just being thoughtful of like, thought about this person. I'm gonna give an encouraging, "What's up, man?" Just go get them. Go win the day. That's
Absolutely.
all you can do. You know,
It's important.
And then just imagine if that becomes contagious and that person's like, you know what? I thought about him today. I'm gonna send him a text. And just the chain.
Absolutely.
All right, to wrap this thing up, Marcus, this has been awesome, man. Do you have any closing thoughts, any words of wisdom, advice, Bible verses, quotes that you live by?
Ooh. You know, I shared the one: don't quit, don't complain, don't make excuses. Those are the three easiest things to do in life, you know. So don't do them. You know, try your best not try to be reflective, and like, what's the next step outside of me making an excuse or walking away from something, or, you know, woe is me, you know, about it. You know, probably what I would always read a quote when I was teaching. We'd always start with a quote for the day.
Yeah, that's from UD.
Yeah. If I said that right now, if I say quote for the day, they'd say quote for the day. Right? Man, yeah. But you know, I'm gonna try to say it correctly. But one of the quotes I loved reading to the kids at the beginning of the school day was, "Some people complain because God put thorns on roses, while others praise him for placing roses amongst the thorns." And I think what that says is, how are you viewing life, man? Are you focusing on the thorns? Are you like blindly disregarding those wonderful roses, right? Because those thorns are beside it. And so to me, it's just about mindset, you know, like as I share this story, I appreciate the forum to do this, you know? And so a lot of people say, wow, I mean, Mary's really experienced some things. Yes, absolutely. But it has trained me. As I said, it was written, I was supposed to experience those things, because you're going to have a hard time not finding me positive.
Yeah.
You know, you're just going to have a hard time because it's just not really in me. I have my down days, don't get me wrong. My kids kind of drive me crazy occasionally, you know. So I'm not saying I'm all perfect here, but as I'm walking through life, man, it's like, what's the next thing I can do? It happened. It already happened, right? So what's the next thing I can do? Yeah. And the clouds are out and the sun is shining, and I got a beautiful wife and these wonderful kids and a great job, and I can see Dan Schmidt right now, you know, that quote to me is just like, focus on those roses, man. Like, the roses are so beautiful and big, and they're so much more evident in your life than those thorns.
Yeah.
Quit letting those thorns get in the way of how you're approaching your life and the mindset you're carrying. So I'll share that one. That's one of
really
many,
good one.
I guess. But
Man, I'll tell you, that's great. And there's no doubt, I think if any of our listeners here are not inspired by you, Marcus, then they're not listening. And you are a rose. You are a rose to so many people. You are a leader. You are a mentor, just like Coach Place, Coach Kelly, your Pee Wee coach. That is you to many other kids. And I hope those kids get to hear, kids who are, I'm sure, are adults, because we're getting older, right? That you've coached and that you've mentored and that you've taught. And I know there's so much more for you coming. There's no doubt. I mean, you can feel the enthusiasm, you can feel the positivity, and that's what we need in this world, right? There's so much negativity. Just like you said, don't focus on the thorns. You're awesome, man.
Appreciate it, man.
You're
Appreciate
awesome.
This was great.
Yeah. And we haven't seen each other in, I don't even know how long.
It's been a while.
It's been a long time.
You don't look like a 3 technique anymore. Hey, you were catching bubble screens in college. You look good, my man. You look good.
I appreciate that. Well, everybody, again, we appreciate your ears. If you found Marcus's his messages inspirational, like Ben and I have, and anybody, please remember to like, to share, to subscribe. I hope we gain some CJ listeners. I'm sure we will.
You will. Absolutely.
And donate to CJ. Marcus,
Yeah.
we didn't touch on that, but I'll give you a little piece here. Touch about your mission right now.
Yeah. So right now, if you don't know much about Chaminade Julienne, we're located downtown Dayton. A storied history of, multiple schools that have merged together. He's had St. Joseph Commercial School, Chaminade High School, Julienne High School, merged in like 1973. When we're sponsored by the Marianists and the Sisters of Notre Dame, our orders that we follow, there's charisms that we carry forward through our mission. Beautiful, I love when we send out our postcards. We're a beautiful school of diversity, faith-filled Catholic institution, and doing great work in Dayton, Ohio. Just what's been developed there. I was blessed as football coach in 2016 to be the head football coach to open up the stadium.
Yeah.
We played Marion local, unfortunately. But just what's been built around the campus and just the vision that is ahead. We're in the middle, so I'm working in development now. I was assistant principal, football coach, and now working as assistant director of development. So having a wonderful time engaging our alums and benefactors and parents, and I'm amazed and inspired by their philanthropy and their support of what we're trying to do and build around that campus. And I think there's a bright future that we don't even know, but we have a lot of energy and support around getting there. If you ever get a chance to visit CJ's campus, it's just beautiful. Emmanuel Church is the middle of our campus. Just a great symbol of who we are. And but in the midst of my work, we're in the midst of closing out a campaign we call Ascend, a $25 million campaign that we announced in April. We had at that time, when it was announced, raised $18 million. We've since raised an additional $4 million, so we're at about 90% of our goal, and we're going to use the next year and a half to kind of work to close that out with great energy and rest, and then probably open another campaign that I think is going to be pretty darn awesome about what it's going to bring to us. So you can follow us, www.cjeagles.org, and find our website and see the information on our campaign if you're interested. But I love CJ. I love that place. I'm blessed to be there. My daughter's a freshman, so I'm loving that. I got a 7th grader and a 3rd grader who will be there, eventually too. And I tell my daughter, and this is no nothing against my high school, Licking Heights. Some love to you too, but I tell her the best compliment I get is people say, when did you graduate from CJ? It's a great compliment, right? And I tell that to people, like, I really appreciate that you believe I was formed into the person I am out of this mission.
Yeah.
But I was not lucky enough to go to a school like this. And I let my daughter know that, that dad wishes he could have experienced freshman retreat, sophomore retreat, junior retreat, senior Kairos, the service assignments, Make a Difference Day, just like spreading the news, man, of goodness in this world. And that's what, when I talk about CJ's mission and my heart being aligned, like it could not be more aligned, and that's just what I believe. So I appreciate the commercial there, man.
Man.
Shout out to the Eagles on Ludlow Street.
Go Eagles.
Yeah. And I mean, you are in the right spot. There's no doubt. CJ is lucky to have you.
I appreciate that.
And the city of Dayton is lucky to have CJ.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
absolutely.
Man, thank you.
Thanks, guys. Really appreciate
you.
it. This was awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Thanks again, listeners. Everybody go out and be tempered.
Hi, my name is Allie Schmidt. This is my dad, Dan. He owns Catron's Glass.
Thanks, Allie. Things like doors and windows go into making a house. But when it's your home, you expect more, like the great service and selection you'll get from Catron's Glass. Vinyl replacement windows from Catron's come with a lifetime warranty, including accidental glass breakage replacement. Also ask for custom shower doors and many other products and services. Call 962-1636, locally owned with local employees for nearly 30 years.
Catron's Glass, the clear choice.